If you'd like to make your NFL games a little more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby, Vegas. It is the Even Money Podcast, presented, of course, by DraftKings Sportsbook, and it is Draft Week 2022. Hopefully you're all watching or listening. I guess I'm preaching to the choir because you're already here. Tell everybody you know the NFL Draft is the single best event we are aware of for betting purposes. We are about to throw out free money for all of you over the course of the next 30 minutes. And by we, I mean me at Ross Tucker NFL. I mean him, Steve Fezzik, the only two-time winner of the Super Bowl professional betting at Fezzik Sports. And I mean him, my brother from another mother, at Evan Silva from Establish the Run. We had Anthony Amico last week. He was excellent. Now we have one of the GOATs, the great Evan Silva, my longtime co-host for years of the Fantasy Feast podcast, which you should absolutely all check out. Listen, Evan, Steve talked about this last week, so I want to get you in on it first. I still think there's a lot of people out there that don't really bet the NFL draft and don't realize how good of an opportunity this is.
I think it's the most profitable, at least football-related event to bet on that you could get year-round. Sometimes the Super Bowl can be pretty profitable. This past Super Bowl was very profitable. It was a somewhat predictable game, and just the kind of the way that it went. But man, NFL draft props are the way to go. It's really like how I get all the money back that I lose when I'm betting all the other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I need this time of year to keep my head above water.
Thoughts, Steve?
Absolutely right. Well, think about this. In the NFL, let's say you could lay 2 on a game that should be 5 and it closes 5. You're like, I got phenomenal closing line value. You're still only going to win 62% of the time on a bet like that because there's a whole lot of variance. There's no variance on some of these bets. You just win, and so, Anthony really crushed it last week. There is no way Evan can do as well as Anthony, and here's why. In many ways, it's like a scavenger hunt, and Evan is joining the scavenger hunt a week later than Anthony is. So Anthony has already just gotten his Carliftis over 18.5. He's gotten his Sauce Gardner under, 6.5. They're just incredible bets that are no longer there now. New opportunities keep presenting themselves with new information, but become scarcer and scarcer.
Well, a couple things. So, like, to your point, right? Sauce Gardner, Anthony said, love him under 7.5. It's 5.5 now.
Yeah.
Where I'm looking. And by the way, this is a whole other topic for another day. But you can't bet on the NFL draft in Pennsylvania, which drives me absolutely nuts. You can't bet on the NFL draft in Pennsylvania. I would love – look, I think I said this last week. Evan, I live in the state capital, so I know, like, lobbyists. I know guys that are in politics. I'm texting them. They're all worried about who the next governor is going to be. I'm like, nobody cares who the next governor is, okay? We want to be able to bet on the NFL draft in Pennsylvania. Can you guys focus on something that's actually important and that people care about? You're losing money. People would want to bet. And as Steve mentioned last week, let the books decide what the odds are and whether or not they want to operate. That's not something that should be legislated. Let me give you one piece of advice before we get to Evans. Tom Pelissero, who I think does an excellent job.
Yes.
He came out earlier today. All right. This is like an hour and a half ago. 12:04 p.m. What? How is that possible? 12:04 p.m. It's not even 12:04 p.m. right now. I don't know how that happened. So anyway, and he had his list of 7 potential surprise first rounders. Let me just tell you, when he puts that list out, they're not really surprises. It means there's a pretty good chance that they're going late in the first round and people just don't realize it. Like, I'm looking at some of the guys he has, like Lewis Seen, the safety from Georgia, Logan Hall, the D lineman from Houston, who I love. How about this right now? Lewis Seen's over, let me find it. Lewis Seen's over under 34.5 right now. Logan Hall's over under is 39.5. There is no chance he's lasting till 40. 0% chance. I am giving you money. Pelissero talks to all these teams. He knows, he doesn't write this article unless he knows these guys are going late in the first round or they got a great chance to. And they're over-unders, Steve. They're terrible. They're like 39.5 for Logan Hall. I'm predicting right now he goes in the first round, let alone 33, 34, 35, 36, 37.
You got to schedule all your podcasts on the same day next year, because this way you can get out of that crumb bum state of Pennsylvania and get yourself to Jersey so you can make some money, Ross.
It's a great point. It's a great point. But Evan, you know, Pelissero knows what he's talking about.
Oh, I've been following him for
those guys. There's a I would say good chance they're going, because he always say, "Oh, surprise!" It's not a surprise to him. They told him that.
No, I mean, I've been following Pelissero for 12 years at this point. You know, he used to cover the Vikings. He did an incredible job covering the Vikings, extremely plugged in. That's how you become the national, the national reporter that he is now, by just absolutely crushing the Vikings beat. Logan Hall, I think he's going 31 to the Bengals. So I'm with you there. The Bengals are a team that historically will telegraph their first round pick. They don't really care. They let, some information get out. I liked, and then Lewis Seen, is it Seen or Cine or what?
Seen. It's Seen.
Lewis Seen. Okay. Out of Georgia. We just put in a bet and we release props. Lewis Seen to be the second safety drafted behind Kyle Hamilton is plus 300 on DraftKings right now. And I just bet it just before the show. So, if you want to lose, at least that I'll be losing with you. But I really like this one, 3-1. Lewis Seen to be the second safety taken, and he probably goes in the first round. One of the better bets, and I think it's got to just too much negative odds at this point. But one of the better bets throughout the pre-draft phase has been over 1.5 safeties to go in the first round.
So that's nuts, because you look at like what Pelissero wrote, or you look at who the other safeties that could go second. I guess my question is, I guess they list Dax Hill as a safety, because I think that's he's going before Petrie from Baylor. He's going before Jaquan Brisker. It's really just Seen or Dax Hill.
Yeah.
I think I'd still probably go with the over-under and go under 34.5 than necessarily, but plus 300, it's probably, tell me this, Steve, if it's a flip of the coin between two guys, what should the odds be to be the second safety off the board?
Well, it should be minus 100, obviously.
Right. Okay. Yep. So then if he's plus 300 to be the second safety, that's what's the math on the value there?
Well, we're getting a lot of value.
If you bet $1 twice, Ross, you're going to get back $4. So you've got a 100% ROI. That's pretty darn good. That's equivalent to betting the sun will come up tomorrow at Pick'em.
By the way, Evan, there's nobody in the world that does the math in their head for this stuff like Steve. It's you can ask him anything. Like, I might do a show one time where all I do is just ask him like random, like, you're like Rain Man, Steve. How do you have all this? That was an easy one, but how do you have all this in your? He says it like no calculator ever, Evan. He just said, like, he does it in his head.
Well, I was an actuary, which is the rough equivalent of being a PhD in math. The PhDs in math will say, no, it isn't. It's not as good. Well, it took me 8 years to take all these exams that everyone else failed to become a fellow in the Society of Actuaries. So I'd argue it's right about the same. So the bottom line is I'm so out of practice and so rusty, but certainly being a professional gambler, there are guys that they literally can't name a player. Evan, you'd be shocked by this. They cannot name a player, and they're just looking at mathematical strong plays and betting them and winning.
No, I've hung out with Bill Krakenberger before. He knows nothing about sports. I mean, and he will admit that to you. Like, he's like, I don't know anything about this. I'm just playing the numbers.
And in many ways, I question how much Billy Walters really knows right now, the most famous sports bettor in the world, because he's a mutual fund manager. He's got 7 guys who are giving him information, and he's just massaging and he's handicapping his handicappers, if you will, in terms of what he's going to bet on.
It's unreal. All right, Evan, let's get to some of the props you were telling me before the show that you really like. This is an interesting one. Yeah. There's a lot of buzz on Jermaine Johnson, the Florida State D-end, to go to the Jets at number 4. But you like him as a long shot, 100-1 for the Lions to take him number 2 overall. At this point, people think it's going to be Trayvon Walker number 1. I would think Aiden Hutchinson would be perfect for the Lions. Dan Campbell, Michigan, the whole deal. But you like Jermaine Johnson's chances at 100-1.
Well, I think first of all, in my final mock draft, I'm going to have Trayvon Walker going number 1 to the Jaguars and Aiden Hutchinson going number 2 to the Lions. So I don't actually think that this is going to happen. Okay. But I think when you're doing this stuff and you're trying to hit bombs, trying to hit a real long shot, like 100-1, you got to kind of embrace the variance, understand that although you have some level of confidence in what's going to happen, this is one of the most toughest to predict sporting events that there is year round. I mean, I used to compare it to like March Madness in terms of the volatility and the unpredictability. I think it's even harder to predict than March Madness. You can go and look at historical mock draft accuracy, and a really good year would match in a mock draft would match 10 players to the teams that actually take them. 10, what's 10 divided by 32? It's like we're talking about like 33%. That would be an awesome hit rate, and it would give you one of the best mock drafts nationally. So you just have to embrace.
Let me jump in real quick on that,
Go
Evan.
ahead. Sure.
Steve, isn't that because it's like a butterfly effect and one team doing something you don't expect like changes the whole thing? Like, that's why it's so hard.
Sure, but I'm going to disagree actually with the great Evan Silva here. I'm going to make the case that the draft is the most predictable event of all the events. And here's why. As far as the accuracy of the March Madness, people are like, I got every team but one right. Well, that's because you're just predicting, are they going to make the tournament or not? They're not predicting what exactly. Think about if you had to predict, not just are they going to be a 7 seed, but are they going to be the 3rd 7 seed or the 1st 7 seed? That's really what you're doing with the draft. You have to predict the exact slot. Of course, you're only going to get 10 of those right. But the bottom line is there's no unpredictability. The reason the books get bombed on this year after year, and Vegas doesn't want action. Circuit didn't put up lines until Monday, $1,000 max. Westgate just put up their limits on Monday. Their max bet, I believe, is 1,000. On the app is 250. The books get crushed because guess what? Olave is going to go in the top 18, and Gardner is going to go in the top 7, and Karlaftis is not going to go in the top 18. All these bets are massively predictable, not unpredictable. Now, will Karlaftis go 29th or 23rd? I don't know. That's true. That's volatile. But if you're talking about predictability early, nothing is more predictable than the NFL draft.
I understand that position. If you're talking about draft slot and maybe the range that players are going to go, we have a somewhat good feel for that. But in terms of just specifically matching the players to the teams, it's really difficult, and it becomes more difficult as the draft progresses because there's going to be some surprise. And I mean, the teams have no idea how this is going to go. The actual teams, they're all playing games, against each other, and no one really knows.
Sure, but you may as well be asked me to predict the exact score of a baseball game. Of course, that's impossible. The same thing. I don't know who's going to go 34th in the draft. So from that, I agree with you from that perspective. Yeah. I mean, that's
how I think of it because that's how I think of it because I'm like, all about my mock draft. You know what I mean? So that's
and I love that you are. Yeah. By the way, I think I'm going to have my guy that you introduced me to, Ben Standig, tomorrow on the Fantasy Feast, who's been one of the best mock
Yeah, he's
drafters.
really,
So
really
anyway,
good.
I interrupted you, Evan,
Yeah.
rudely.
All
But
right.
what you were basically saying is
We're
you
trying
don't
to hit
think
a
Jermaine
bomb here,
Johnson
man.
going to go number 2 overall, but he might.
I think that it should be like 30-1 and not 100-1. You know what I mean? Jermaine Johnson, a really good pass rusher, had 11 and a half sacks in 12 games last year. Detroit needs help up front, and I think that he sort of fits the culture in Detroit. He will defend the run as well, and I think he'd just be a safe pick for Detroit. Again, I don't think that they're going to take him. I think they're going to take Aiden Hutchinson, but I do think that there's a possibility that we could be throwing a curveball, and I want to be holding at least a sprinkle at 100-1 in case that curveball comes.
You know what else is a safe bet? Athletic Greens. Delicious. 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. Look, Fezzik doesn't like to eat vegetables. Evan doesn't like to eat vegetables. I don't like to eat vegetables. Drink your vegetables in the morning. Get it over with. Costs less than $3 a day. There's a reason why people like Tim Ferriss are all over it. 7,000 5-star reviews. And to make it easy, Athletic Green is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/money. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/money to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. I just ordered more. I ran out of the first stash I had, so I ordered more. What else am I ordering on the Evan Silva prop menu?
I need to say one more thing about the Jermaine Johnson thing that I forgot to say. I've been drinking 2 Athletic Greens a day. Keeps you regular. I mean, it gives you energy. I mean, I love that stuff. But nice. Jermaine Johnson, the other day, it was 2 days ago, Dave Burkett, Detroit Free Press, he's been covering the Lions for a really long time. And I mean, he's as plugged in as anyone when it comes to this team. He tweeted that he wouldn't be surprised if the Lions took Jermaine Johnson at number 2. Now, I think that this would occur only in a scenario where Aiden Hutchinson went number 1. And then Trayvon Walker fell to number 3, which, again, I think is low probability, but it should be, again, more like 30-1 than 100-1.
Okay, what about you got Kenneth Walker? You like him as number 1 running back drafted?
Again, it just comes down to the price. You know, the consensus opinion is that Breece Hall is going to be the first running back taken. But on DraftKings, I don't think he should be minus 250 to be the first running back taken, and Kenneth Walker at plus 225. So this is another situation where we're kind of embracing the variance, understanding what we don't know. And I think both these guys probably go like in the 30s or maybe the 40s. And Kenneth Walker, if you look at like advanced metrics, he was a better tackle breaker, which has been a predictive characteristic. He was a better tackle breaker in college than was Breece Hall. Now, Breece Hall has the receiving acumen that Kenneth Walker did not show, and that's a significant advantage of him. But I just think that these are mispriced here. And so I'm willing to take a shot. Kenneth Walker, first running back to be drafted, plus 225.
And then Kyler Gordon as a first-round pick.
Yeah, these Washington corners have a really nice background. I mean, this is becoming like corner U out west. Budda Baker, Marcus Peters, Byron Murphy, Desmond Trufant, Sidney Jones has come on as a player. Taylor Rapp, Elijah Molden, Trent McDuffie is going to be a first-round pick. I think that teams feel a level of comfort because of the school. I mean, you read like scouting reports and stuff, like they will talk about, hey, Georgia wide receivers have struggled, or Alabama defensive linemen get hurt or something. Like they kind of buy into that narrative type stuff. And Kyler Gordon has been like a fringe first-round pick. If you look at like Daniel Jeremiah's mock drafts and Peter Schrager and guys that, are national reporters. And then if you look at the back end of the first round, a lot of corner needy teams. He plays a premium position. I think he's going to start right away wherever he goes. And so I'm willing to take him plus 110 to be a first-round pick, Kyler Gordon.
Your next one I really like. I think it's sneaky.
Yeah.
But I am
love this one.
surprised that these are the odds for him.
Yep.
Is it 10-1 on DraftKings right now? Quay Walker, first linebacker drafted?
Yes, sir. Too bad you live where you do, Ross. Sorry, man.
Because listen, I've talked to some people. I'd be surprised if he doesn't get drafted ahead of Nakobe Dean.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it relates to Devin Lloyd, it almost feels like it's a coin flip.
I agree. I totally agree. And so what's the value we're getting here, Fezzik? I mean, 10-1, Quay Walker to be the first linebacker drafted. We agree that he's going to go ahead of his teammate Nakobe Dean. And we think it's like a toss-up between Devin Lloyd and Quay Walker to be the first linebacker drafted.
What is Quay Walker's over-under right now? Do we have that, Evan?
That's a good question.
I think it's really
it was
high.
like
Oh my gosh.
34?
33 and a half.
You know,
That is not right.
I don't want to gamble. I just want to win. So I just want to play him under the 33 and a half and just cash my ticket and not – I don't want to split my 10s when the dealer is a 5 and the true count is good and the book says I'm supposed to split because it's a pinochle deck unless it's like I'm certain it's a pinochle deck. I just want to stand on my 20 and win.
Why can't we bet both? Why can't we take our even money winnings and then, essentially because we're confident in that and then use them to throw it on the 10-1?
I like that.
Let's get some bombs. Steve, we need to get some
units.
bombs here, man.
Bet 2 units on the under and bet another unit on the 10-1. Sure.
All right, let's go.
Steve, that we've been doing the show a long time. We started this show the year after Evan and I started Fantasy Feast. That might have been my favorite line you've ever said. I don't want to gamble. I just
By the way, when I play blackjack, and I will split 10s on a super high count, and the table loses their minds thinking I'm the dumbest blackjack player in the history of the planet.
Yeah,
when the irony is that every single person I play with is horrendous. No one has any clue. People say, I know, they think they've got the game mastered, and they're standing on the 12s against the 3s. They got no clue what they're doing.
Why? Okay, explain that to me real quick. Why are they so mad when you split the 10s?
You're supposed to just take the win, right? You're supposed to just take the 20.
Because they're like minor birds. They just have been taught, you never wreck a great hand like 20. Why would you split that up? When the irony is there's plenty of hands that are good, like ace-7 against a dealer 5 that you break up all the time and double down, and yet they never question that. The people just don't think they're just repeating what they've been heard.
God, okay. There's like the 10 blackjack commandments, and everybody gets mad at the table if you break any of them. Okay, this next one, these next two are really interesting, Evan. You have a bet in on the exact position of the Packers' first pick.
Yep.
But it's not what people think.
Yeah. So DraftKings offers this. I think like FanDuel offers it too. A bunch of books offer this. You can bet on the position at which the team will use its first pick. And so I just go through and I look at I compare my team needs with the odds. I'm not taking anything that's like close to even money here. I'm trying to hit, a bomb. So 9-1 Packers to take an offensive lineman with their first pick. Their first pick is at number 22. David Bakhtiari is coming off like a lost season due to knee problems. He only played one game last year, and then he aggravated the injury, couldn't come back. Lucas Patrick went to the Bears. Billy Turner left for the Broncos. Dennis Kelly's still a free agent. They need some help on the offensive line. And so I think at these odds, it should be more like 4-1. But we can get it at 9-1. And so that's why I was willing to take a shot here.
It's interesting. I feel like Packers fans will lose their minds if they don't take a wide receiver
I know.
in the first round. But you might be onto something here because Bakhtiari having to get a cleanup surgery, that is not good. You have a torn ACL, you try to come back, you can't come back. You have to have a cleanup surgery. That's a bad path to be on. That's not good. And I'll tell you what these teams do sometimes. They keep that quiet so that people don't know they're going to take a lineman. You know, for all we know, Bakhtiari might never play again. I don't think it's going to happen. I will say this. Josh Nijman did a pretty good job last year.
Mm-hmm.
And although this is last year, his contract actually already. But they've got Runyon and Myers and Royce Newman
Jenkins
and Elton Jenkins. So I don't know. I don't know if I'd say 4-1, but I think
Yeah. I think
9-1 might be a little rich.
I think it's likelier that they would take a lineman at 28, probably. Take the receiver at 22, come back at 28. Although, you know, I think these wide receivers are going to go fast, man. I mean, I think that the top 5 receivers are all going to be gone by 17, the Chargers at the latest. So, I mean, they could, like, you know, the receivers could go, and then they're like, well, we need to take a lineman. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, you got to embrace the variance that you just really don't know really what's going to happen. And one pick can lead to a domino effect or a butterfly effect or whatever, and change the map, change the course of the draft.
You love the draft.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped.
I can just tell you love mock draft. You love the intrigue.
I'm a nerd, man.
All right, what will you do? It's noon Eastern on Tuesday. Tell me about the next 30 hours for you. Like, are most of your bets already made?
Yeah.
Or are you just like, you see a Pelissero article, you pop it, and boom, you're hitting the under on the guys he says are going first round?
I'm trying to hit long shots at this point. I got all my even money bets in, and I'm just looking for bombs. And hopefully we can land one here on this show, help the people. But yeah, I'm writing an article. It'll be 10 things I think about the 2022 draft, and then I'll try to get some sleep, and then start banging on that final mock draft, and getting ready for the real thing.
Make sure you check him out on Twitter at Evan Silva. Check out Establish the Run. Steve, any further advice is your last word of wisdom to our great listeners or viewers at youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL before they bet on the draft and watch the draft Thursday night?
Listen to these Establish the Run guys who are, by the way, Evan, your guys are killing the market. Please don't release stuff that's only at one book. I mean, I've gotten so much feedback from the crackmans of the world. Like, these guys are too good. They're ruining the market. By the way, there's Quay Walker under 37.5. Under 37.5, thank you.
That's a good number. Yep.
I just bet it 3 times in a row.
Steve, I've never seen you do this before. This is why people need to check us out on YouTube. The last couple shows, last week with Anthony and today, Steve last week with Anthony, he was writing them down. Today, he just pulled his phone out and just placed the bet while the show's going on.
And far be it for me to give advice to the great establishment of Establish the Run. But, they're doing a lot of stuff with the USFL, and I'm catching all your stuff. It's excellent. But there's such a smidgen of a market to bet these players. And I know there's daily fantasy, but you got to, if you can, my request would be have your guys talk a little bit more about the spread and the total and recommendations on bets there. Because
so that we can start getting stuff wrong, you mean? So that we can start.
So you can start getting stuff wrong. Well, you can start, giving me stuff that I can bet on here in Vegas because there's just no market for players. Yeah. I can't play any of it here in Nevada.
Evan, you're the man. Love every time you come on any of our shows. So pumped up for the draft. Everybody check out Evan. Check out Establish the Run. Check out Steve at Fezzik Sports, at Evan Silva, at Ross Tucker NFL, at Ross Tucker Pod. Should have Ben Standing on the feast tomorrow with a little more mock draft action. Other than that, good luck, everybody. Hope you guys win some money.
Thanks for listening to the Even Money Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, The Fantasy Feast, Business of Sports, and The College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.